The Chamber of Mines presents the Mining Industry Occupational Safety and Health, or MOSH, Leading Practice Adoption System. What is the MOSH Leading Practice Adoption System? It is a methodology used to replicate existing pockets of excellence in health and safety throughout the mining industry. It is a crucial part of the industry's drive towards zero harm. The Mining Charter requires every mine in South Africa to report annually to the Department of Mineral Resources on whether they have considered or adopted specified leading practices. So what exactly is a MOSH leading practice? It is an existing practice that has proven to be particularly effective in delivering good occupational health and safety performances and which has the potential for widespread adoption. It comprises technical and behavioral aspects. Think of a leading practice as a tripod. It must have 3 legs: a technical leg, a leadership behavior leg, and a behavioral communication leg. In practice, the MOSH adoption system has 3 simple steps: to identify, document, and then facilitate widespread adoption. Within these steps, there are essentially 2 parallel yet integrated processes that fully come together in the final step of initiating widespread adoption. One process deals with identifying and documenting the technical leg of the leading practice. The other deals with the behavioral communication and leadership behavior legs of our leading practice tripod. Let's look at the first process, identifying and documenting the technical aspects of the practice. Firstly, we identify the leading practice. The MOSH adoption teams first prepare through risk assessment analysis, reviewing research and development outcomes, holding discussions at mines, and developing a risk story. After this preparation, a structured industry planning workshop is held with people who have the best industry knowledge. They consider and compile a list of potential leading practices and after a rigorous process, select the one with greatest potential. Potential adoption mines are also identified at this stage along with the key people to be interviewed. Secondly, we document the leading practice. At the source mine, where the leading practice is delivering good results, we document all aspects of the leading practice. The technical aspects such as standards, procedures and systems are recorded. And the equally important behavioral aspects, what communications and behaviors, especially from leaders, contributed to the success and sustainability of the practice. These outcomes become part of the leading practice adoption guide. This is a user-friendly document that contains all the information gathered from process 1 and 2 that a potential adoption mine needs to voluntarily decide whether or not to adopt the practice and to then successfully adopt the practice. Another important part of the adoption guide documents the value case. The value case sets out the benefits of adoption and answers the crucial question, what's in it for us? Mines will not adopt a leading practice if they are not convinced that the benefits of saving lives outweigh the financial costs. Now let's look at the second process of the MOSH adoption system, behavioral communication and leadership behavior, 2 of the legs of the leading practice tripod. To understand these concepts, we need to understand that people have what we call a mental model. A mental model is the combination of views, experience, perceptions, beliefs, values, emotions, and biases that each person has. It is with our mental models that we make sense of our environments. Any new information about the leading practice is evaluated against our mental model, and if it is in conflict, it will be rejected. We will only adopt a new idea voluntarily if it fits in with our thinking. Firstly, we need to study the mental models of potential stakeholders. These are the people or deciders who make the decision to adopt the practice, and those affected by the adoption, including those who will use the practice, otherwise known as the adopters. This study is done at a sample of all potential adoption mines, at the source mine, and later at those mines within the COPA that decide to adopt. Studying mental models entails an activity called the direct inquiry process. One-on-one interviews are held with potential stakeholders. The relevant mental models are unpacked and misperceptions, knowledge gaps, and harmful beliefs are identified. This process recognizes that all interviewees are experts about their experiences. Open-ended questions are used to provide interviewees an opportunity to say what they think. The second step is the development of a leadership behavior plan and a behavioral communication plan. Generic plans are drawn based on an analysis of the direct inquiries throughout the industry as well as the investigations at the source mine. But what do we mean by behavioral communication and leadership behavior? Behavioral communication is providing the best available knowledge specifically tailored to address incorrect beliefs and knowledge gaps in the mental models of stakeholders. Leadership behavior is also very important. Everything a leader says or doesn't say or do sends out a message. A leader cannot not communicate. For example, if a supervisor sees unsafe work and does not react, his behavior sends out a very strong message that says, in this workplace, it is okay not to work safely. Also, if a manager recognizes and rewards appropriate behavior, that behavior is likely to be repeated. During the direct inquiries, people tell us what leadership behavior will facilitate voluntary adoption and what will cause resistance. The behavior communication and leadership behavior plans, which are integrated into the Leading Practice Adoption Guide, provide guidance on displaying appropriate leadership behavior and delivering behavioral communication. Remember, the adoption guide only contains the generic plans. Adopting minds need to conduct their own direct inquiries and customize the plans for their own circumstances. Without the two behavioral legs of the leading practice, the tripod will be incomplete and lasting adoption is unlikely. Finally, let's look at the integrated process of initiating widespread adoption of the leading practice. Widespread adoption starts at a leading practice adoption workshop where all potential adoption minds are represented. The two main aims of the workshop are to present the Leading Practice Adoption Guide and to get minds to sign up with the Community of Practice for Adoption, or COPA. The COPA is the most important vehicle to facilitate widespread adoption. Here, mind representatives can share their experiences and learn from others. At COPA meetings, training needs are also identified and assistance by full-time MOSH personnel is arranged. Adopting minds are advised to follow the 16-step adoption process outlined in the Adoption Guidance Handbook in the Adoption Guide, without which successful adoption is unlikely. The ultimate triggering step in the adoption process is when the adoption mind's management actually decides to adopt. We use the word adoption deliberately because it conveys the idea of making something one's own, like adopting a child. People will only do things correctly, consistently, and without fail if they want to, if they see the benefit of it at a personal level, and if it is inspired by their mental models. This is what we call voluntary, eager adoption. It is centered on people. This differentiates the MOSH adoption system from previous approaches in technology transfer. It is important to remember that adoption is only completed after all 16 steps in the Adoption Guidance Handbook have been implemented, including monitoring, evaluating, and reporting on performance. Only then will the stable tripod for lasting leading practice adoption be in place. The MOSH adoption system was designed by the South African mining industry for the mining industry. It is supported by the Chamber of Mines member companies, organized labor, and by the government. Used correctly, the MOSH adoption system forms a fundamental part of the industry's drive towards zero harm.